What is up and what is going on, guys, and welcome back to another installment of the Rufus Rundown Podcast. It's been a little while since the last Rufus Rundown Podcast took place. I think it's been about 10 days since we had Craig Holden of the Anfield Agenda on, and if you haven't seen that episode, please go check it out. It was obviously the biggest guest that we've had by far on the Rufus Rundown, biggest guest I've had, and was an incredibly enjoyable experience for me. Huge experience for me, really. I could not appreciate what Craig did for me, and Craig coming on, I can't appreciate him enough for what he did for me. I'm so thankful for the experience, and I really think it's a great podcast, regardless of what sports you follow. If you're a soccer, football fan, whatever it is, I think it was a really interesting discussion. It had to do with COVID, Project Restart, which obviously I can get into here because the Premier League is set to return on June 17th, so we get to see Liverpool finally lift that Premier League trophy for the first time in 30 years. Now, it may take place in July, August, whenever it may take place, but it is going to take place, which is just monumental. It's huge. And it's also huge for teams that are competing for that fourth spot, like a team like Man United that's outside of looking in right now, and teams like Tottenham trying to break back into it. And certain teams, and Arsenals and all that, it gives a lot of these teams time to set up differently, work on their craft now, because it's going to be like a 3-week period where they can build back to it, almost like a pre-season type deal to get reconditioned to it. And Jurgen Klopp has come out and said that not all these teams are definitely not going to be in their best game shape, because anybody who's played sports knows that game shape is totally different from just being in shape. Obviously, these players are working out, staying in shape during this whole COVID-19 pandemic and during quarantine, but obviously they're not in game shape. You only get in game shape by playing games. That's just how it is. There's no greater analysis to it or anything like that. You're only going to get in game shape by playing games. So some of these teams have been trying to organize friendlies, because as of Wednesday, Thursday was the first day where it was phase 2 of Project Restart, where it was full contact practices and everything like that, tackling, touching, not the separate of the separate groups. Now, there have been some teams, I believe it was one of the lower English divisions, that was penalized for not adhering to the social distancing rules of the first phase of coming back. At least I forget what league it was. I'll have to look up the story exactly which it was, and I can link it in the description. But now the Premier League and the Championship too, because the two lower English division teams were totally just canceled. They won't relegate anybody, and the teams will get promoted, and those leagues will look a little different next year until they sort it out in this following year. But even Liverpool, they're going to most likely win the title at a neutral site, but it doesn't matter for me. I mean, it sucks. It's not a situation that anybody wants to happen. It's not a situation that anybody expected or anybody can prepare for. So beggars can't be choosers. We want the title, right? We want to see the Premier League finish up. We want to see our teams finish in Champions League spot, finish in a Europa League spot, finish our season the best season they've had. We want to see this season finish out. At least I do as a Liverpool fan. I'm sure other fans do as well, because their team might be competing for a Champions League spot, which is obviously huge. It's a big deal for these clubs, even for teams that have underperformed. Now they can get settled in. Bruno's gonna have more time to really settle in for Man United. Situations like that. So players can get healthy now. Certain players that were injured for a while now are all set to go, and it can be more of an impact. I'm pretty sure Marcus Rashford's was set to be miss the rest of the season, but now I'm not sure if he'll return for these games. Obviously, they're gonna be big games. I'm sure he'll be back, or he'll return at some point during the season from his injuries. So it is a big deal for everyone, and it'll help Man United compete for that spot, and it'll help teams like Chelsea and such, compete to finish in these Champions League spots. And hopefully the Champions League returns. Obviously, Euros are moved. Obviously, the Olympics are moved, but we might see the Champions League take place in August, kind of to replace the Euros. Neutral site or not, someone's still going to win that competition. So La Liga, I got to look at the date on La Liga as well. La Liga is set to return June 11th. Barca top of the table there. Obviously, Bundesliga is already back. So the cool thing about it all is that the Bundesliga, like I talked about it with Craig Holden, I talked about it with Andrew DeMello, you have something to look at. You have a model, a blueprint built for you to progress, to build upon, to even better in your ideas. It's the same for the MLS with the tournament idea that they're coming up with. It's the same with Serie A coming back too. I believe the date for Serie A is June 20th. It was originally June 13th. It's been bumped to June 20th. And Italy was one of the worst spots that's been hit by COVID-19. It was one of the most publicized, and just it was a mess over there. It was one of the first leagues that had to shut down because of it, with Daniele Regani getting it, Paulo Dybala getting it, all those situations. But now they've finally been able to reset, come up with ideas. And June 20th, they're set to restart. And you look at a league like the Premier League, they tested all the players this next round of testing since Phase 2. Not a single person had it. No staff, anything. So the numbers are incredibly low for people that got it to begin with. But the second batch of testing has now led it to being, none. There's nobody that tested positive. So we're definitely going to get Premier League football. We're definitely going to see Liverpool finally lift that title, which is huge for me as a Liverpool fan. I think the Carabao Cup, the FA, is all set to return as well. So the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, like the League Cups and everything like that, are set to return. I think the Prem wants to complete the season by the end of July. So we're going to see a lot more of a condensed game action in the FA Cup final we played, in August. They're looking at 92 matches in a little over just 6 weeks. So for me, as a person on Hot Mic, it's going to be huge too, because I'm going to get to commentate over a lot of those games, tune into a lot of those games. It's going to be a lot of high-level Premier League football, just world football, to tune into, because all these teams are going to want to get it done in a certain manner of time, and then you're going to see the Champions League as well. In it's going to be knockout stage now, in a very condensed period as well, kind of World Cup style. And you're going to get the same thing with the MLS as well. If you want to look at what they're doing, they are set. So the plan is for the MLS. The players would report and fly into Orlando on June 24th. The teams would train for 2 weeks, and then a 3-game group stage would take place, World Cup style, followed by knockout rounds. Obviously, teams that do not advance to the knockout stage, they go back home. You go back to quarantine, your training, whatever the plan is, you go and do it. And the amount of time at most that would be spent in Orlando for all teams is 6 weeks. So all you have to do is get through this for 6 weeks, get all the testing, adhere to the guidelines, play your games, play your high level of football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, and you can get out. And we can be safe again, and we can now sit back. This season's over. We can plan for the next one. We can build to the next one, which is obviously huge news. It allows plans be made for certain capacities that come in. It allows the governments, it allows the whole the country as a whole to figure out what exactly needs to go on. And you don't have to worry about the revenue and this and that and other thing and missing these games and when's it going to resume. It's there, it's over, it's out of the way. We have a title winner. And I think a lot, and the MLSPA is okay with it. Now, there's different pay cuts and stuff that they still have to go over, but the plan in place is set to go. It's just it's gonna come down to pay cuts and such, and that's all reported by ESPN. And of course, I don't think any of these players should be getting more than a 50, whatever. They're gonna have to determine how many games are missed and what they're gonna be playing in comparison for the pay cut. So it's a little different from the MLS. It doesn't relate as much to the MLB, where they're playing half of the season, and they shouldn't be getting any more than half of a pay cut, which the scale is messed up there. But we'll get to that later in the episode. But like I said, the MLS players would report to Orlando under, everybody. The MLSPA would agree to a deal, and teams would, obviously do all the training, everything like that in this worldwide sports area. Very similar to what the NBA has planned as well, to report to the Orlando complex, and it's all coming together. The world is starting to pick up the pieces, starting to, the hysteria and everything. I obviously, it's still scary times, but the hysteria and everything has kind of, been washed away, and people are finally able to take a deep breath, step back, and say, we can do this. It's safe to do this. It's not outlandish to say we can do this, and we have, and brighter times and open roads are in front of us. We can finally, figure this out and take it on head on in a safe manner. You're not putting anybody at risk. And like I said, the Bundesliga was amazing that they were able to get everything under control and be that blueprint for all of these leagues. And even over here in the U.S., too, like the MLS taking the plan, like I said, for June 24th, I believe it was. All coming soon, all going to be by the end of this upcoming month. And then obviously, too, you'd have the NBA at some time in July. Hopefully the MLB in a similar time frame. And then the NHL as well, looking to make their comeback. And it'd be which again, I'll get to it later in the episode, maybe not beneficial to some of the better teams in the league, but an interesting format would make it exciting, the same as the NBA's format would do. And you still get games played. The season still finishes. You still get a champion. And it'll be an unforgettable season, of course, but you don't have to deal with what happens if they don't finish it, whatever. You're not just going to have the season end with no champion, revenue, all that stuff. You're going to get through it, and then you can sit back and not really relax, but you can sit back with more of a clear mind, less of a worry of what's currently going on, and just look forward and how to set it up with more of a clear mind than how are we going to do this now on such a short time frame, because you don't have all the time in the world in front of you. Obviously, there's a time where the season is going to start in front of you for the following season, but you have more time to sit down and really think about what is going on and how to progress with a good plan that is beneficial to all, and it has time for everybody to negotiate and really meet in the middle and understand that, hey, maybe they will eventually be able to bring in certain capacities of fans, or maybe a vaccine will be around, and they can really have a bunch of different avenues they can go with. So some Bundesliga matches took place today. Yesterday was Freiburg and Leverkusen, and Kai Havertz grabbing another goal, which Kai Havertz, I think, is genuinely the prize out of the Bundesliga. I would love to see Timo Werner at Liverpool. Do not get me wrong. I think he would be perfect up front. You drop Firmino behind him. But I think Havertz can fit in that same role too. A lot of people don't believe that Havertz would be able to play in our midfield. And I don't necessarily think he has to do so. I think you can see Havertz, he's played as an out-and-out striker for Leverkusen, and I think he could do such a thing for Liverpool. If he played, as a kind of false nine, you drop Firmino behind him, kind of like a weird kind of pivot partnership in the attack with Salah and Mane in the wings. I think Havertz would be a fantastic addition. I mean, he's 6'2", offensively inclined. You don't have to make him worry about defense. You just allow him to work his way forward and really create and just finish off chances. He's an incredible finisher, incredible shooter, great accuracy, a great passer, just all around a great presence, on-field presence, a presence for the game. I think he's going to be really grow into a leadership role, and there's no better team, I think, for him to slide into than Liverpool. I think they would definitely he'd be engulfed with a lot of knowledge. He'd be around a lot of knowledge. Guys like Van Dijk, Salah, guys that have been in this system, I think he would fit perfectly right in, and he'd have guys like Firmino and stuff to help him out. And whether that means we see Wijnaldum exit or not, that would be yet to be determined, because obviously you have the contract situation with Wijnaldum, and if you were to bring in even a Werner or a Kai Havertz or a Jadon Sancho, who I don't really think they're after anymore, but there's opportunity. Do we see Wijnaldum sign? Because it most likely we'll see Firmino drop in the midfield, which would obviously leave out a spot, and I don't see Henderson or Fabinho leaving at any time soon. So that gets a little tricky for Liverpool fans. Werner has said that the reports is that Werner is staying. He's waiting for Liverpool. He's had talks with Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp specifically, and he's willing to wait for us. And whether we see some type of deal like Naby Keita, where we see the signing happen now, the official, transfer everything, the money go through now, him stay at Leipzig for a year, or then come. I really would like to see. I think Werner is incredibly clinical, more clinical than Firmino. Not that I think Firmino is a bad striker at all, but I think if you dropped him in a role behind those three and still allowed him to do what he does, it would be even a more incredible boost from what he already does as a center forward. If you let him play in that cam to center forward role behind Werner as an out-and-out striker with Salah and Mane building up on the wings, I think it would be an absolutely deadly, combination up front. Now, people are reporting that, Michael Edwards and the rest of the Liverpool transfer staff and Jurgen Klopp are out of the race and are not willing to pay more than the £30 million that his value is, and they're not willing to go up to the $50 million release clause because of the way the market looks like. And like I said, the market, as I talk a little bit with Craig Holden about, we're probably set to see a lot more of player transfer deals as opposed to player swaps. I know a lot of people overseas and big football fans, overseas football are, not really familiar too much with the player swaps. I mean, we saw the João Cancelo and Danilo swap, but we've heard a lot about this, this Miralem Pjanic and Rakitic with Semedo deal. Like, this is kind of unheard of for people overseas, but we're used to seeing blockbusters and such for prospects, for bigger name players and prime players go on in the U.S., and I think that MLB and NBA blockbuster type trades could start taking place because of the way the market's going to look and the way teams are going to be looked to conserving or making money, as opposed to, how it's going to look on the books. I think we could see more of those. But, obviously teams that are in good financial stature, such as Liverpool, who didn't even spend barely any money in this last window, might be able to take advantage of that with Werner. Now, announcing that you're out of the race would would be maybe a tactic in a sense that, there's going to be teams that, if Werner has made it public that he wants to come to Liverpool, right? He wants to wait for Liverpool. That's the idea. Teams can continue to bid for him, but at the end of the day, he wants to come to Liverpool. He's not going to sign with him. So what it does is, teams really might not bid for him knowing that he just wants to come to us, and if we're out of the race, he's just bound to stay at Leipzig, correct? Well, why would you, if you're really going to push one, we really want Timo Werner. We will stop at no cost to get Timo Werner. Other teams are going to drive up the price because Leipzig's only going to accept the best offer. And even if he doesn't want to go there, they're only willing to take the best offer. They won't take less from Liverpool. Why would they? For that player who's obviously played incredibly well. So I think Liverpool are trying to kind of play a transfer tactic in a sense that he probably still will end up in a red uniform. He will still end up with the new Nike kit, new Liverpool Nike kit on at the start of the next season. Now, whenever that transfer window takes place, because they reportedly have wanted to move it to August, September, and October, post-Champions League, if it were to take place in August, if all goes well with the league. This is a by-basis thing. This is a by-success thing. If we can successfully get to the league, can we successfully get to the Champions League? Can we successfully get through the FA Cup? Can we get through all these things successfully with no problems, no cases, God forbid, no deaths within these leagues? And can we break through and finally sit down, settle down, and say, how do we go forward with this next season? And like I said, there's a chance for vaccines. There's a chance for a lot of, beneficial things that can really, just flip everything on its head. Vaccine and stuff like that can really, or antibody testing and all that stuff can really, change all of this. We might see full stadiums by the time the next season starts. People working around the clock to try and solve this issue. Could not be any more incredibly thankful than I already am for all the frontline health workers and everyone trying to combat this disease. And I'm sure everybody over there is as well, and everybody over here is as well. As, like I said, we have a blueprint to follow. Now, one thing I want to talk about, obviously, is the MLB and how far apart the MLBPA is with the owners. The owners wanting them to take bigger pay cuts, and a player like Mike Trout, who's set to make $38.7 million, only making $7.5 million, and how, it is not a good look right now. And Max Scherzer said they're not going to negotiate anymore. They're not going to talk anymore. It basically embarrassed by what the MLB sent back in terms of pay cuts. And it just is not a good look for a game that has already really just kind of started losing the crowd with the way the games go. And the juiced baseballs, but they're making games longer. This is the least watched. The last World Series was the least watched whenever. The whole Astros cheating scandal, how long it took them to come out and say the Red Sox didn't even do that much. It has not been a good offseason at all for the MLB, and it's only getting worse. We might not even see an MLB season this year. Marcus Stroman says that has come out on Twitter and said that he believes there's genuinely a chance that there will be no season. Trevor Bauer's been going at former MLBPA members like Kyle Loesch and such. It's been a mess. Scherzer coming out there with these quotes. Meanwhile, the and then these owners that have made so much revenue off these players still want more for them. Listen, the players are the ones really. The owners aren't in danger. They don't mean in danger of losing, some of the revenue, some of the revenue that they're used to making off of ticket sales and such. They're not. A lot of them are not going to go under. The Oakland Athletics' entire farm system has been laid off. The Oakland A's might just not be a team anymore in the near future because we can't get any type of revenue at all. No TV revenue, no anything. So they have to figure this out. I can't stress that enough because I for one believe that the game of baseball itself is dying. The game itself is dying. I can't wait to see neutral DHs, an 82-game season. I think what they should do is drop one of the wild card teams in each league and just have the wild card play the 1 seed and the 2 play the 3 of the division winners. Play a 100-game season, Have the DH for all leagues and unjuice the baseballs and go from there. Maybe expand the rosters to 30 players. There's a lot of ideas I have, and I have it set up for a separate video. But the point being now is that they have to figure this out, and there has to be a season this year after all the negative press and the continued negative press and the game just losing viewership and less kids wanting to play baseball growing up. They need to figure this out, and they need to hope that it's entertaining. And like I said, now is the time to take this little risk with the DH and such for the National League as well, because maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but this whole season is about to go down the drain anyways. So whatever you can get out of it, get out of it. And if you can, test out a couple things along the way, do it. Use it as a positive. Now, like I said, Scherzer came out with the tweet, and he said, after discussing the latest developments with the rest of the players, there's no reason to engage with MLB in any further compensation reductions. Scherzer said, we have previously negotiated a pay cut in the version of prorated salaries, and there's no justification to accept a second pay cut based on the current information the union has received. Now, they want to extend the season a little bit. They want a longer season, which I guess with the pay cut, they obviously, you get paid a little more, so maybe that's the idea there. I think half the season you should not be receiving any more than half a pay cut, and they should not be getting paid any more than half what they're getting paid for only playing half the season. That's how it works. Playing half the season, you pay them half of what they're supposed to get paid. It's simple as that. But at the end of the day, the players are the ones putting themselves in harm's way of this virus. Whatever you believe, how bad you believe it is, these players will be putting their families in harm's way, essentially, with what we are believed to be as bad as this virus can be. Some people have newborns, kids, elderly people that they live with. Obviously, they'd have to take it away and they'd be separated from their family a while, and they're still putting themselves in harm's way. There might be players with asthma and such, and you don't know how that result would be if those people got, this disease. So they should not be getting any less than half, at the very least, if they're playing half of the season. They should be getting at least what percentage of the season they're playing, at the very least, because they're the ones putting themselves in harm's way, and they're the ones that produce the product. The owners can be there all they want and own these teams, but if the players are unwilling to play, there is no product. There is no MLB. So at the end of the day, the players hold all the power, and they need to put these players first and just need to get this out of the way and figure it out from there. I mean, they can't give them the world, but they have to figure something out, correct? They have, like I said, the game is dying. You need to get something on the table. You need to get it signed. And for anything less than half for an 82-game season for half of the season, it'd be unacceptable for the players to have to accept it. So the next thing, obviously, is the NBA. And the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver and the league office have informed the Board of Governors that July 31st, 2 days after my 21st birthday, which is a big deal, but that's besides the point, is the target date of the return of the season. Now, what you would see is obviously a different, it would be like a kind of a group stage World Cup style tournament with, it would say, what was it? I believe 22 teams would play in this tournament in Orlando when they would fly down. I believe it was 22 teams. They would take, obviously the 8 right now, and then take some of the top teams that were, in contention between the two, and just seed it, right down in the middle. I think the Pelicans would be in a group stage with the Lakers from one of the things that I saw, or they might just go into whatever the straight playoffs are. It doesn't look like every team is going to finish out the season. And I know a lot of NBA owners there's a report that they were scared that the league wants Zion Williamson in there, and they're afraid of that because but obviously they're afraid of it for a reason. That team is totally different with Zion Williamson playing, and between Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, they're kind of scared that they could make some noise now with the healthy Zion Williamson, because let's not get this twisted. They were on track to make the playoffs with Zion in the lineup, especially as he was starting to come off his minutes restriction and really play some meaningful minutes for that basketball team. I mean, he had one of the most electric debuts in a very long time. He took the league by storm in that first game, and then was incredibly taken out at the most meaningful part of the game, even though he had a minutes restriction. I understand that, but I mean, he had obviously should have been in that game, but that obviously is done and over with. But I think it's a great idea for the NBA, and I think that I would love to see Zion in there with the Pelicans. And the group stage still allows teams to kind of catch, obviously the good teams can have maybe a hiccup or two, but still have those warm-up games essentially to build against, the weaker teams, playing each team twice, and get those kind of like, not warm-up games, but they get resituated, get into game shape. Like I mentioned, you don't get it. You could work out all you want as hard as you can, and you're not going to be in game shape. You have to play. You just have to be in game to do so. I can say the same thing with football. I mean, I remember training for summers and training during the summer and thinking I'm in the best shape of my life, and you'd still get to camp and it would still kick your ass. Especially Coach Mendes, and obviously I mentioned Coach Mendes. Please check out that interview with Coach Patel, the most viewed video on my channel, 1.7 thousand views. I'll link it up in that top right in that little suggested section. Go check out that interview with one of my favorite Old Colony football coaches. Obviously, my favorite coaching staff of all time together, that whole Old Colony coaching staff. But like I was saying, I would still get my ass kicked, and I could prepare for it all I wanted. And obviously, I'm not a pro athlete, which is even more, even athletes have come up, professional athletes have come out to say that game shape is just a totally different thing. So July would obviously give them a lot of time. A lot of teams have reported back. Massachusetts, I know Charlie Baker just said that the Celtics could report to, training and adhering to specific guidelines. And then Phase 3 is coming around for us soon enough as it is. And it looks like the world is really, back on track and ready to, progress towards, new beginnings. Getting back to none of this new normal stuff. Back to normal. And I'm incredibly excited about it, especially considering the fact that a bunch of live sports will be on right in the dead heat of summer for me to comment it on, more than just baseball. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love baseball, but, everything's going to be in full swing, and then hopefully the NFL, by the time that comes around, like I said, hopefully there'll be a vaccine, or hopefully there will be, certain portions of the stadium stowed, and people will be able to adhere to social distancing within stadiums, and there'll still be some fans. I know today when Bayern Munich played that they had artificial fan noise. Today when they beat Dusseldorf 5-0, there was a bunch of fan noise coming to the speakers. I can't say the same for I don't know, to be honest, with the rest of these teams in that league, but I know watching the game they had a bunch of fan noise playing and music and such to try and, really any type of home field advantage at all. Have a guy kind of running it like the fans would be cheering and then being quiet for certain periods as well, too, to try and, any type of psychological advantage that they can have. So all of this will come to, obviously, will come to the U.S., will come to these different leagues, different ideas, different plans will come throughout. Like I said, there's one league, the Bundesliga, really creating that blueprint, and the rest of these teams can now follow. So only positive, only moving forward now with all professional sports. And I think just generally as not even just a country, but as a whole world, I think the whole world is beginning to move forward and get adjusted and really starting to combat this and fight this COVID-19 head-on. Now, the NHL has not approved anything. There was a 24-team format that would take place, and I think it really does hurt, like the best of three and all that stuff, hurt the teams that, have succeeded, like teams like the Bruins, teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's going to hurt those teams because the teams coming in from playing those couple of games in that format would have the advantage because they're in game shape. They've had those games to get going. And it would probably, you'd be set to see a lot of upsets in the NHL. But it'd be, like I said, it'd be fun. And you can complain about all you want. Beggars can't be choosers. You want the season back, or you don't. If that's the way they have to do it, that's the way they have to do it now. The players and the Player Association are all going to still have to agree to it. And it's been reported that they still have to figure so much out. But I'm not going to sit here and complain and pick and choose with the way they're going to do things. As long as the players are safe and as long as games are getting played and we're trying to move toward a quick solution to still getting a title and still getting these games and this season played so we can figure out what we have to do moving forward in the greater scheme of things with the situation we have in front of us, I think the better off it'll be. So the sooner we can get back, and obviously it's a mental release for people too. They're watching live sports. It might not be the same, but it genuinely, people have mental health related stuff in terms of a negative sense is up by percentages like crazy. Domestic violence up by crazy. Divorce rates up by crazy. People are losing their minds in quarantine. They're losing it. And sports, you can say what you want about it. You're a fan of it, you're not. It does genuinely speak to people. It does genuinely take that edge off. It does genuinely move people. People appreciate it and people fall in love with it. And they're still in love with it right now. And it's something that they can't show that appreciation to. It's something that they can't get involved with. It's not something that is able to take away from the daily stresses they might be going through in their life, whether it be anything going on at home with them not being able to leave and really losing their mind, or having to come home from work, or having a family member suffer from something related to it, or suffer from another health-related thing that might be even worse than because of COVID. It is something to take that edge off for them, and I think the sooner all these leagues get back and going, we will see even more so the country and the whole world begin to pick itself back up. Now, I had mentioned the Bundesliga before and where the real prize coming out of it was. One of the things I want to talk about is why the time is now that Americans really should embrace football, should embrace soccer. Because you have, some of the biggest teams over there. You have Schalke, Weston McKennie, American, great player. I think 21 years old. He'll be in his prime in 2026, right when the World Cup is here. Serginho Dest is he's an American, but he plays in the Dutch league as a right back. 19 years old, incredibly talented. Reminds me so much of Dani Alves, who some rate as the greatest right back of all time. He has so many similar qualities. He's been incredibly good for a team in Ajax that has one of the best youth programs, if not the best youth program, and ability to grow players in the entire world, in all of world football. He's set to make a move to either Barcelona or Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, one of, if not the best teams in the world at this current second, and obviously the biggest team and best team in Germany. I would like to see Dest go to Dortmund, especially considering the fact that now Real Madrid have, confirmed that Achraf Hakimi will be returning to Real Madrid to kind of re-spark and ignite that fire to rebuilding a incredibly, entertaining and just great Real Madrid program again. And I could see no one better to replace him in that role at Dortmund than Serginho Dest. I mean, Americans have succeeded at Dortmund. They have Giovanni Reina there, who's 17 years old and was set to start the other week, made an appearance off the bench. If he didn't get injured during, warm-ups, what about their starting? Christian Pulisic played for Borussia Dortmund. He transferred, one of the biggest Chelsea transfers of all time. So there's Tyler Adams. He's a wingback and center midfielder, really talented player, American, obviously. Plays for RB Leipzig, one of the best and most up-and-coming teams in that league. Werder Bremen has Josh Sargent, a tall, strong, pretty quick, pretty good, very good speed over a long distance. In Josh Sargent, Chris Richards had a big goal for the second team of Bayern Munich, the youth team. Another American over there in the Bundesliga. So the Bundesliga, really one of the only live sports you can watch right now. And not to mention, there's a lot of young Americans over there right now playing. And on top of that, like I said, they're very good. They're contributing to these teams. And they're set to meet their prime right during 2026, right when the World Cup is in America. And you know how crazy the Americans go. Even ones that aren't big football, soccer fans, they go bananas. And imagine what it's going to be like when it's here. So I don't think there's anywhere close to a better time than now for Americans to embrace the beautiful game and really take it in and appreciate it. Another name to throw out there, Zach Steffen. He's going to be the backup goalkeeper for one of the best teams in England, in Man City next year, set to be behind now that Bravo is set to leave. And he's also plays for in the Bundesliga too. He's on loan there right now. So there are so many players, so many names over there right now that you can really get behind and really, watch and start to understand the game, as it's one of the only live sports on right now. And you can really learn to appreciate it. So that way, when the time comes around in 2026, you're involved, you're set, you're zoned into what it all really means to us, not only as a country, but as what this beautiful game can be for this country. Now, Michael Jordan, right? We're going to get into some Last Dance talk now. Michael Jordan, before the Last Dance, was very, hesitant. He was hesitant. He was afraid. of what he was going to be looked at. He was afraid of how his image was going to be affected by The Last Dance. And of course, a lot of people going to, oh, well, how bad can it be? What's it going to be like? They talk about the bullying. Oh, it can't be that bad. A lot of people have changed their tune on Michael Jordan. At least in my opinion, I think people have definitely looked at him differently, whether it be for better or for worse, since the documentary. I look at him in even a brighter light. This guy, I honestly think, is one of the best athletes ever to step on the planet, if not the best athlete ever. I think he's the best athlete ever to step on the planet. Easily, hands down, the best basketball player ever. Championship mindset on and off the court. I don't think there's been anyone more competitive, anyone more driven. This guy lived to be the best at whatever he was doing at any moment of any day, whether it be gambling, any type of way he could compete and be the best at it. He would do it. It didn't matter if he was taking $1 from you, $1,000 from you. It didn't matter if he was dunking on you or beating you in a golf match. It didn't matter. This guy was a competitor. And he wanted the best out of the people around him. And listen, he may have seemed, and he was definitely a dick at times. He definitely seemed like a dick. He definitely probably was a dick. He definitely was, it's disrespectful at times, but at the end of the day, he was successful. If he did all of that stuff and he wasn't the best to step on the court, or wasn't the best in the court at the end of the day, or if his teams weren't successful and were very bad, he would just be a bully. He just wouldn't be good. But because of how much success that they had and how good he was and how he was able to bring up the people around him to be that much more successful, that is leadership. That is pure skill. The best players and the best leaders are not only able to elevate their game, but they're able to elevate the game of people around them. And he was able to elevate the mindsets, elevate the abilities of everybody that was around him while in Chicago for not only one three-peat, but for a second three-peat. And I don't think there's a more clutch player out there, one of the most clutch athletes of all time. And if there's anybody you want your kid to model yourself after in terms of drive and competitiveness and just an athlete to look at in terms of how everything he's done, Michael Jordan. You look no further than Michael Jordan. I honestly believe that. Just that drive and competitiveness, you're not going to find anyone like this ever again. I don't think there's anybody, up here, up in the head, that has the makeup, that is made up there like Michael Jordan was. And you have to appreciate it. But another thing I want to touch on too is the whole Isaiah Thomas thing, obviously. And how, a lot of LeBron fans said, oh, that's not my GOAT anymore, whatever. Listen, I think LeBron's one of the best basketball players ever, and I think he's one of the best athletes ever step on the planet as well. I don't think he's better than Jordan in both aspects. But I think LeBron James overall, an incredible athlete. But if you're going to, criticize LeBron James for, he had to win a championship, he had to go get, superstars like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Well, then I better not hear it doesn't matter when you talk about how Michael Jordan, the reason Isaiah Thomas was in that dream team was Michael Jordan. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with what LeBron did either. But it goes both ways. Michael Jordan was just as kind of sensitive in that sense as LeBron appears to be today. Listen, they're the best on that stage, and MJ went through some stuff obviously with the media and everything. LeBron goes through with the shut up and dribble stuff and all of that mess. But at the end of the day, when you talk basketball, Michael Jordan, he definitely came out and said, I'm not playing in that team if Isaiah Thomas is playing. Now, Isaiah Thomas, a great basketball player, great guard, great point guard for the Detroit Pistons, had a great career. But if it comes down to the argument between Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan, you're taking Michael Jordan 11 times out of 10. And listen, it's not a great look for him, and a lot of people look down upon him. It doesn't really matter to me, but at the same token, it never really mattered to me what LeBron did with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh as well, because he had no shot with what was going on in that Cleveland front office. He was carrying those teams, and they had to create cap room. They had to do certain things to go there. He wasn't, and they couldn't go to Cleveland because that front office just couldn't get it done. He had the opportunity to go there. Now the decision, not a good look in hindsight, but you have to understand that if you're going to criticize LeBron for trying to build super teams and communicate with other people, you're going to have to criticize Michael Jordan too for being defensive in the sense that I'm not playing if Isaiah Thomas plays. It works in the same fashion. I don't have an issue with either, because at that point too, Team USA, really, it wasn't that big of a deal to go play in the Olympics. Like, a lot of the professional players, big-time professional players, weren't really involved with it until that dream team came together, and it became a very, very big deal, especially when they all came together. So it's unfortunate for Isaiah Thomas, but at the end of the day, it came down to a respect thing, and it came down to, who do you want? You want MJ, or do you want Isaiah Thomas? And obviously, at the end of that argument, you're going to go with Michael Jordan. One of the last things I want to touch on too. I don't want to. I don't like politics. I don't like getting into politics. They frustrate me. They anger me. The whole country really angers me right now. But I'm going to have to touch on the whole George Floyd situation just a little bit. Not going to get deep into it. Not going to get deep into both sides and the arguments and the media and everything like that. All I want to ask for is that, yes, there needs to be justice for George Floyd and his family. I'm praying for them. I hope everybody can understand that what happened was wrong, incredibly wrong, and that whatever the worst things that are coming to that former police officer that murdered George Floyd, I hope he gets all of the worst things coming to him, and I hope everybody else believes the same thing. But it's bigger than just a police thing. It's bigger than just a Black Lives Matter thing. At the end of the day, it's bigger than this country. It's the entire world. It comes down to a simple amount of respect between human beings. No black, no white, no Asian, no this, no that. What it comes down to is we need to be better humans. We need to call upon our neighbors. We need to call upon our brothers to just genuinely be better people. Don't get lost in what people want you to believe, and don't get lost in what agendas are being pushed. Step back, take a deep breath, and guide yourself morally. Guide your own soul, and try to uplift the souls of people around you. Ask better of those people. Hold those people accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Try to better yourself. And really just appreciate. Humans that appreciate you, you're going to appreciate back. And if a person doesn't appreciate you, if it's a shitty human being, you don't show them any appreciation. That's what it simply comes down to for me. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I think all we have to do now is ask more of ourselves. Even if you think you're giving your all, give a little bit more to being a better person, and try to drive the people around you to do the same. Inform yourselves. Really get informed on the situation. Try to get as much knowledge as you can on it, and try to understand all perspectives, but also just at the end of the day, try and attempt to build yourself, try to become a better person, and try to uplift those around you in doing the same. Justice for George. Every single human live on this planet that is trying to become a better person, is trying to improve, themselves, trying to be a better soul and uplift souls around them. They all do matter. So that's all I ask, is that you're able to, black, white, whoever it is, being able to appreciate the humans around you and hope that they appreciate you back, and you're able to just, wrap your arm around them, hold them a little bit tighter, hold your loved ones tighter, and appreciate what you have, but also try to do more for those who have less, and try to do more for those who need help in this time of need. That's all the time I think we have, all the time we need. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Both of those are at Rufus Rundown. Like the Facebook page, The Rufus Rundown. Check me out over at my website at therufusrundown.com. Check out eliteathleticgear.com. Use the code Rufus Rundown, 15% off. It is gear for athletes, by athletes. I use it all throughout high school. I still have their headband right here. I have played golf in it. I have I work out in it all the time. Great gear for great prices. So please be sure to head over to eliteathleticgear.com. Like I said, use the code Rufus Rundown, 15% off. And also be sure to download the Hot Mic app or head over to hotmic.io. Yes, Hot Mic, HOTMIC.io. And either download the app on the App Store, like I said, or check them out over at the website. Make your account, download the app, and use the code Rufus Rundown. It helps me a ton. It helps you stay up to date with what I'm doing there. It's going to be a lot of live commentaries over live sporting events, especially the Dortmund game coming up tomorrow, and especially as all these leagues begin to return. I'll be doing live games, all those live games as well. Not all of them, but the majority of those live games, especially Liverpool games, as well. And hopefully when the NBA, NHL, MLB all decide to return, I'll be bringing on a couple of friends, a couple of guests to call games with those guys as well. I'm hoping to bring on another guest next week. I'm hoping it is this week in MLS, Eli Lesser. And I'm hoping to get his thoughts on the MLS and the return and what his thoughts on tournaments are and how close that is to happening, because I believe that he does have some inside sources for that. So really hoping to bring him on. He's agreed to it. We just got to figure out a time, and I got to send some questions over. But I'll have that figured out within the next week. The FIFA career modes, I'm going to keep them coming. They're going to keep flying in. I hope you guys are enjoying all the content I'm putting out. 200 and I think we're sitting at 203 subscribers now, which is absolutely huge. A couple of videos have gone over 1,000 views. I can't thank you guys enough for all of that. 200 subscribers, it may not seem like a lot to you or a lot to many people, but it is absolutely monumental for me, for a guy that was at 3 or 4 and maybe touching 20 just a few weeks ago. This last 28 days, I think I've put up over 180 something subscribers and over like 20,000 views, and the view time, all of it is up, and it's all because of the great viewers that I have and the great support that I have. So please be sure to follow on all the social media links. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel. That is all the time I have for you guys. It's your boy Rufus, signing off.
Bang.